Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thank you so much for joining us for this NRF recap. Ali, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to today's episode. Thank you for joining us live from New York. How's it all going?
It's been overwhelming. I've been coming here for 13 odd years, and obviously COVID created pent up need for retailers and suppliers or partners to retailers to get out there. Last year was busy. This year is just I keep thinking, where is this going? What will happen next year? It's really great. Manhattan, amazing city. I did a retail safari for a few clients on Saturday. And again, just the sheer level of participation, digitization, e-commerce, focus on the future of. I think AI has really been this catalyst for change. So it's going really well. I feel like a little boy. I'm suddenly going, wow, this is amazing. I'm learning. It's just incredible. Really, really good time.
Very cool. Ali, before we start, perhaps for those that don't know you, just very quickly, a little about yourself, and then we'll dive into what you've been learning so far.
Sure. Okay. So for the last, I've been working, I don't know, 33 odd years. Majority of my career has been in the corporate land for two big American companies, Verizon, American telecom, running their retail practice in the US and in the UK. They're basically talking about digital transformation, blah, blah, blah. And then head of retail for Microsoft in the UK and as a global consultant for them for the last 6 odd years. 1.5 billion in transformation. Have actually worked for retailers as well, being contracted to be product manager, project manager, digital transformation manager, you name it. I've been there and done that. And then about 2-3 years ago, actually during COVID, I just was getting frustrated by not being able to talk about the whole spectrum of change that's happening. And so therefore, I started the retail podcast and touch wood, wherever that is. It's been going from strength to strength to strength to the point where I kicked in the day job and have been doing this. This year, I will be at every single major event around the globe: Shanghai, Hong Kong, Las Vegas, Germany, London, Paris. So the retail podcast has gone from strength to strength. And this year is just going to be another phenomenal year.
That's superb, man. And I think it's fair to say now is probably an appropriate time to say, as kind of working as an ambassador with Quickfire, it'll be great to be doing these with you as you go around the globe to try and bring people kind of the latest insight and learnings from the sessions that you're going to. So massive thanks for offering to do that.
I think it's a great testament to you, Nathan, for having the foresight to understand that your customers are on a retail journey and they're looking for so much more than just an agency. I think just a technology vendor, there are so many justs and me toos, and have the foresight to think, we're going to be with our retailers on their journey. And as I said, I'm like a little boy. I'm excited to get into it. But even like the talk with the president of Shopify yesterday, where he's interviewing these two phenomenal Shopify only brands, one that's only 10 years old, one that's only even 3 or 4 years old, and their growth. I was just sat there thinking, that could be Nathan. That could be Nathan.
The dream.
It's just, I thought, wow, that's so cool. And for me to be a part of that, I'm super privileged. So thank you.
No, not at all. So, Ali, let's dive in. I know you very kindly put together a presentation, and hopefully everyone can share that screen. Just a bit of housekeeping. If anyone's got any questions for Ali in terms of what he's seeing, learnings, key takeaways, etc., please do ask, and I'll try and get through as many questions as I possibly can. But for now, Ali, if you'd like to dive in, just tell us what your kind of key takeaways are and take us through the slides.
Sure, absolutely. I have to caveat, there were like big signs everywhere saying, please don't take photographs, don't screen grab, don't record, don't, everything. So just between you and I, right, in terms of the community that you've got. So what I'm going to share with you, this is, if you like, the tip of the iceberg. Each session is about 30 minutes to 45 minutes in terms of the keynote talks or the presentations that they put on. NRF has something like over 1,000 to 3,000 vendors demonstrating their technologies over 3 floors. Every single major tech company, including Shopify, is here, as is every single global retailer worth their salt, and upcoming brands. There's an innovation area and there's a food area. The slides that I've got are from 3 of the best presentations that I think that I will break down, but we're not going to be able to break down 3 hours or 7 hours of content in 30 minutes. So I've just like screen grabbed the top part, and that's what I'm sharing with you, specifically to a digital and e-commerce community. So the one thing, as you can see, there is incredible growth in the market, and it's challenged me. It's challenged my thinking of it. I'm an all-round retail guy, so I talk about physical, I talk about digital. And post-COVID, everyone, I was getting not a bit down in the dumps, but it was like physical rules. E-commerce is stuck at 22 to 23 or 7%. It's not going to change. This year, the narrative has really changed in terms of there is still growth. Sorry, that's a truck outside. And I'm on the 23rd or 30th floor, right? So anyway, a transformer going down Manhattan, right? That's what you anyway. So there's this growth that I haven't seen people talking about in e-commerce because retail isn't keeping up. And so I've seen 2 or 3 talks talk about the e-commerce is still growing. It's still its infancy. Obviously, AI is in everyone's talk. It's the one that has the biggest queues outside of the auditoriums. But anyway, so it's really important. This is from Euromonitor. Now, Euromonitor allow you to download this presentation. I would head over there. It's the consumer report or something. But their way of looking at the top 5 trends for consumers, I found super interesting. Number one, because they break down, and the TikTok economy, obviously that's selling TikTok. But the reality is this is community commerce. And I think for e-commerce brands and brand owners, building the communities that probably most of you already have, right? You wouldn't be on Shopify or successful on Shopify if you did not have a community to serve. But that's just becoming more and more important. And obviously TikTok is capitalizing on that and trying to take the market in the sense of TikTok commerce with Salesforce. So thoroughly recommend getting that Euromonitor presentation and breaking it down into its different elements. It was lovely to see all 3 presentations talk about re-commerce 2.0. Basically, and for such a long time, 100 odd years, retail has been linear, right? We consume, we buy, we throw away, ultimately, one line. And for those who maybe know about the donut economy, it talks about a circular economy. And that's coming into age to the point where people are now talking about it. There's retailers working in that area. And some of the legislation that's coming from European Union about the digital passport that has to come with products, that means every single product has to be able to talk about its how much it's worth at the end, as in like its secondary value, the materials that go into it, will force the retail industry to think in a circular manner. I think that's a win for all of us. It's a win for our people, our planet, and profit. So I'm well into that. So I think this was super interesting.
Ali, sorry, just to jump in there. I've had a question from David, and David, thanks for asking. Just a couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind. Firstly, just how much is the NRF presentations focused on the US market versus the global one? Is it very much they're talking about the global opportunity, or primarily focusing on the US and the growth opportunity out in the States?
I think it is 60% US, 40% international. I think all if we were going to break the world down, right, and anyone who works with American companies, they sort of say America and everyone else. But let's be a little bit more grown up and say, right, there's the US, there's Europe, forgetting your perspective of UK and Europe. Let's just call it
Yep.
Europe, and Asia Pac. So what NRF tries to do is capture a sentiment of what's happening in Asia, the reality of what's happening in UK and Europe, and what's going on in the US. So, for example, the lady here, she's English. There's a whole ton of English Brits who are there flying the flag for the UK, presenting statistics. But no one will focus on the UK market alone. They'll talk about it as a UK and Europe in that sense, from an international perspective, which sort of makes sense, right? In the sense that people want to grow their businesses outside. So just a side note, I work with the Spanish e-commerce digital association. They are all about helping their e-commerce and digital native brands expand the borders. So there's a lot of cross-border focus, but hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that's perfect, Ali. Thank you. David, I'll come back to your other questions shortly. Ali, please do continue.
Okay, I think personalization and customization is something that people who have worked in the digital sphere have been conscious of. How am I tailoring not only my advertising, but my product to my customers? One of the key takeaways I took from this statistic, and when she was talking, and it made absolute sense to me because it's something that I feel, digital savvy shoppers, people who have signed up for the offer, have signed up into your loyalty program, are on your sort of CRM database. They're not there as a pastime. They're there because they want to engage. They're there because they want more. And so there's the research now shows that digital savvy shoppers actually increase better and wider engagement with brands. So they not only want to be known, but they do want that level of personalization. And the Salesforce, Mark Benioff, when he was chatting about his, I can't remember, there's like a Louis Vuitton brand that he was, just imagine LVMH, right? When he goes in there to buy his Louis Vuitton jacket, he expects them to know him, understand his shopping. Oh, you were shopping in Tokyo last week. Here's something that we want, that we think you're going to like. People expect that. So I thought that was super interesting. And again, we're friends. For a long time, when I've been working with people, some people will say, "Oh, that's a bit icky that knows more about me," and I'm like, "No, not really. I've never seen it that way. I've seen that helps me. That supports my time. It supports my getting to the thing that I want and giving me choice." So I think there is a bit of a shift in thinking in that area. Look, again, you know this, I know this. The chap here from WD Partners, his I don't know what he does, but in the room, 95% of the audience was from South America. So obviously he's a Brit. They do immense work, but his audience is South America. So Brazil, Argentina. It was packed and standing room only. But he was really interesting. He was talking about how, and he took the Amazon portal and said, let's break that down into what are the things that is driving success for Amazon, or has been, been part of their success. Forgetting the search bar, right? Because he understood that search bar will change because of AI. No longer will we search like we've done in the past, like show me. And some of the presentations were talking about how you search for sentiment. So rather than showing me, and you can imagine, a little black dress, show me party ideas for an evening, whatever, fun, formal, whatever emotional feeling. Sentiment search is going to be where we move to rather than product search. But when he broke that down, and his challenge was to the physical retailers, he said, how many of you here have just tried to recreate this in your physical environment, which has been absolutely the wrong thing to do? And I was like, sat there going, yeah, you're right, absolutely. Physical retailers are trying to create all these digital only tools in their stores rather than focusing on the one thing that you go into a store for, which is experience. And I like this. Doris, I don't know what Doris was. Do you know what Doris is, Nathan?
No idea.
I think it's deliver online, return in store.
There we go.
So, and then there's a great article that he suggested that we read, and I skimmed over it, and it's about how basically shopping is dead. And this is more US focused, so I have to be sensitive to this. But basically, because it is not fun, and so retailers that are brands that are making it fun are, obviously existing. They're still around and able to fight another day and keep going and transforming. And I think that's no different for digital brands. If your brand is not, and I don't know if my next slide, I think he basically says it's very sort of now vibe, right? You got to have the right vibes about your brand for consumers to sort of buy into what you're doing. And there's this refocus on creativity. And again, Nathan, I thought, again, from your community perspective, that's probably things, a brand will struggle with. How do I do this digitally? How am I going to make ourselves vibe better online? And again, I thought that was super digital. That you can see that. Yeah.
There's one thing we're doing and particularly investing in this year is that idea of experiential commerce. And that kind of links into that in terms of this. I was speaking to Maya Knights the other week around this kind of omni-channel experience and consistency online and offline. And I think we'll see more and more retailers needing to push the boat out and create more of an in-store experience to drive people to store. So I think what the chap said there is absolutely spot on.
Yeah. And then just to sort of to put it into context, you can see the scale of every auditorium, how big it is, how packed it is, people standing around the rough. So you got to understand. Sorry, you don't have to understand, but these are retailers, right? These are not technology vendors that are going to go there, because the ticket for a technology vendor is about $4,000. Retailers get it for about $1,000 or maybe a little bit less. And so the reason why, for me, that's important, if people are paying to turn up, or their companies are paying for them to be here, and these exhibits are packing them in like this, it's because it's relevant. This is right now. If you were going to take a litmus test of what's hot right now, people are looking for that leadership in those different areas.
A question.
Yes.
Did you manage? I just had David raise another good question, which was just about your re-commerce topic that you raised earlier, which was actually, it looks great if a business is 100% kind of absolute mission statement is around sustainability and the kind of circular economy. Tremendous. However, for many brands, it's kind of bolted in. It seems like quite a high effort thing to achieve, but potentially low reward. What's your take on that? Do you think it's almost non-negotiable now that every brand needs to start considering their re-commerce offering, or do you think it will continue to be those that are doing it are kind of going all in, and there's loads that actually just don't consider it?
I have to do the answer that comes to mind is, if you don't do it now, the legislation will come in at some point that will make you do it, right? But by then you're a Luddite, because all of the other people have already moved and gone forward. So for those who wear spectacles, if you go to, I think they're called Bloom or Bloom, I think, in Carnaby Street, there, when you buy a pair of plastic frames from them, they give you every single item of carbon, how much carbon was used in the process to make your frames, from the guy sat at or girl sat at the machine making it, to what happens to it. So retailers that are creating brands for a sustainable future understand that they may not get a return on that investment today. And for a long time, we're in a cost of living crisis still. Inflation is still high. Prices are still high. Retailers are faced with the challenge: do I go and invest in this and potentially not get a return, which is what your investment in sustainability has been. Kate Anquetil from GDR, another British lady who again does thought leadership in retail. She talks about at the age of transformation. And it sounds like this does something like transformation movie. It's called Transformation Thing, right? But basically, how we're going from I can't read the slide. It says end of something to the period of end of waste, and I do agree with that. I think people are looking at that. European Union will introduce its legislation. why is that important to British retailers and brands, is the fact that if I get a choice to buy this jumper from Lacoste and I feel good about that whole circular economy about it, and then there's a Brit brand over here that maybe, you know, so I don't know, is exactly the same, I'm going to go for the one that makes me feel good. Retail is about feeling. It's not about buying. It's about, and shopping is entertainment. So in my mind, yes, I agree. The return on investment may not be there yet, but it is the future, and you have to have a pathway towards that. And when you think about it, everyone keeps talking about, oh, you know, emissions 2030. Not that far off now, right? We're talking 7 years or so. So it's one of those disrupt or be disrupted, and there is no doubt in my mind, as the extreme weather changes continue to happen, we as consumers will be more conscious of our decisions.
Ali, just quickly a shout out there to Rob Inslee, who is heading up retail over at Blue Bloom. And I suggest anyone listening does check that out. That's bluebloom.com. Really cracking brand, doing some great stuff in terms of that re-commerce experiences you touched upon. So do have a look at those guys.
Yeah, I mean, the other interesting presentation on re-commerce is the fact that and these were US retailers, and maybe the brand that you just mentioned that does this, but there is now like this millennials or young shoppers, they expect a hybrid experience. You want new, here's new. You want pre-loved, pre-owned, here's pre-loved, pre-owned. You want restoration, you want to do it yourself, here's how to do it yourself. And I think for digital native brands, that should be like the one thing you know, really easy to do. You're building that sort of how to look after your things. So Shopify, Glossier and Base. I mean, you know, it's like, it was truly inspiring to listen to, you know, and the president from Shopify, he was, you know, like, again, like with his little waistcoat, he sort of tried
to a character. Harley is
awesome. He is, right?
Great stuff.
And I was, you know, because like there's these memes for these characters from technology, right? And he was the guy that was like, you know, I'm going to go on with trainers. I'm going to go on with my waistcoat. I'm going to be cool and different to all you know, fuddy-duddy retailers who are in the physical world, because I'm digital, right? But here's a really key takeaway from Glossier, the lady on the far right. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. She started the business with her co-founder, and the story behind Glossier, they're now in Sephora, that I can't remember the millions business in physical retail using the Shopify enterprise POS. So there is not one part of her business that's not on Shopify. And this sort of tells you about where Shopify will be and what Shopify wants to do. But when she said, look, because he said to her, how does a brand like Glossier compete with, you know, LVMH, these established 100-year-old retailers? How do you break? She goes, look, it's really simple. We're 10 years into a 100-year journey. We are looking at that 100-year journey and just saying, we're 10 years into it. And they're breaking it down that way. So in her mind, they're 100 years old, that brand. And they're doing all the things that they would expect a 100-year-old brand to do. But they're just 10 years into it. And I thought, phenomenal. The lady from Base, which is sort of like, you know, hip travel. And they're going into pop-up stores now, and they're experimenting to build that community. Both, again, businesses in the hundreds of millions. But her sort of focus was on this building community, building brand, building relevance, and then taking feedback, right? How do you let your customers be part of your growth? How do you get their feedback to come into the types of products? And so I'm sat there going, right, is that revelation? But like, for example, one of her luggage bags has a shoe compartment. I was like, but apparently for people who may have shoes with big heels on them, that's a bit of a problem because you can't. So anyway, there was this whole sort of customizing your products to the, you know, the customers, but Shopify allowing you that quick turnaround of experimentation. In terms of the future of retail and how we don't go off. In terms of the future of retail, I don't know if someone asked him that with the question when they said, "Where do you see the future?" Or he just offered it. For him, retail is everywhere. You know, right now you and I are talking, and I just mentioned this jumper. For him, some codec somewhere should be reading that I'm talking about this jumper, it appearing somewhere in someone's feed, right? It is everywhere. From, as he said, from like when he's doing that keynote, if people are looking at things and they're, you know, computer vision, product recognition, all of these different technologies, retail for him is everywhere. And that's why Shopify is not just going to be an online platform. They will be an enterprise grade platform. That's what his mission is, of being an enterprise grade platform, providing services to retailers online and offline. Now, in my mind, that's what I've been telling retailers to do for the last 15 years. Why have you got your POS system on this antiquated old mainframe and your e-commerce on this fast? And why is it not one system? So it's a process of transition. Obviously, it's not that easy. There's a lot of other established players, but for new brands who are Shopify, pure play Shopify, I think they're going to be, you know, find an easier transition into the physical world, which I think people will end up in.
Ali, sorry, just building on that, why do you think there has been such reluctance to merge the two? Is it just the fear of change, or the concern around cost? Yeah, costs.
It is. So I've worked with, I would say, every single major retailer across the globe, the top 5 at least. Each one of them has had a sunk cost in legacy systems, their ERP systems, their POS systems. And then what happens is, like, you know, the famous phrase of putting lipstick on the pig. So they'll say, "Oh, we've modernized." And they go, "How have you modernized?" "We've got these new iPads that, you know, only have limited functionality, or these new tablets or displays." And I'm like, "Okay, so you've changed the terminals and that's it." And so the cost of transformation has been prohibitive. And I think a lot of them have gone bust because of that. They bought into someone's technology, whoever that person is, or sorry, whoever that company is. And that's why I think the nimbleness of brands on agile shopping platforms such as Shopify will have that little bit of advantage as they go into physical. And Glossier was like the, you know, the poster child for that, in terms of their brand is purely built on Shopify's platform. As someone who's a tech person, obviously I have 100 questions that I'd like to ask her, and like, how do you manage like 10,000 SKUs, all these other things, right? But I think it's in, you know, Shopify is now an enterprise grade service provider, and it is services. So on their on their stand, which was quite big and packed as well, and I did take photos, but I don't have it. This is the last slide. They were, again, as you would expect, they were talking about how they're embedding AI into every single every single component, from search to back end product lookup. Not all of this is available, but the guy was demoing, how do you use AI to get the best stock recommendations based on your actual sales? You know, and that is someone's full-time job in physical retail, to look at inventory, to then make recommendations on pricing on inventory, to get the right price for the right product in the right place at the right time, is a career. And, you know, here's Shopify saying, well, that's just a plugin now. We can do that. So, yeah, and that's why, yeah, as I said, I'm like a little kid excited about the possibilities.
Well, what'll be interesting, Andy, is on the 31st of this month, Shopify released their latest version of Shopify Edition. So expect to see a 50 to 100 new features. And again, how many of those will be leading towards or encompassing AI to really help transform kind of user journey, but also kind of merchant experience, will be really interesting to see. I know they've brought out loads of features in the last set of editions which have incorporated AI, but I see that only getting stronger. So time will tell. Ali, conscious of your time, and very good of you to give up some time today to share your thoughts and learnings so far. In terms of, if you could sum up NRF in just a few sentences, what would you say to those that didn't make it? What are the kind of key things that they need to go away and have a look at? AI being one of them. Anything else that really stands out as, guys, you can't miss this?
I think personalization and customization has to be part of your agenda. How are we going to be more personalized and customized? Part of your agenda has to be, how are we going to be more sustainable to our customers and suppliers? And how are we going to maintain relevance? The number one question. Obviously, the takeaway from NRF is there are 1,000 ways, and that's part of why that's the things. But maintaining that relevance is critical in a period of disruption and change. And everyone started their presentations by saying, what we thought as one-off black swan events. Oh, there'll never be a mass pandemic. Oh, there'll never be a boat stuck in the middle of a canal blocking trade for the world, right? Oh, there'll never be a storm that will knock over power lines in the sun. So all of those, they will never be, have been. And so therefore, if we live in this disrupted world, how can, and I haven't talked about this and supply chain disruption, how are you going to mitigate those risks? How are you going to protect your business to make sure? I heard, was it Next or someone saying, oh, because of the problems we've got, and I'm trying to work out, is that true? Are you really saying this? That, some lines are going to have 2 to 3 weeks worth of delay. So does that mean that midsummer we'll still have winter, or mid-spring we'll still have winter clothing in stores? So again, it's the sign of our times, but they're the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 ways that I think well, and I'll try, and I will. What I'm trying to do is obviously disseminate, put this into structure, put this into podcasts, break it down so people can have that as so stay tuned, and there'll be more dissemination of what we're taking away.
Thank you, Ali. For those that are listening, I hope you found today useful. Please do go and connect with Ali on LinkedIn, follow him, connect with the Retail Podcast, and just keep up to date. Ali, it's been a real pleasure hosting you today. Thank you for your time as always, my friend. Safe trip back when you do fly back, and I look forward to seeing you again at the next show, which I think is Dusseldorf in the not too distant future.
Correct. In February, the Eurosys, the European Technology Show, which is, again, all the tech providers talking about what they're going to do. So I look forward to speaking to you then, Nathan.
Perfect. Ali, thanks for your time. Take care, everyone.
Cheers, take care. Bye.